I think it'd be a neat project.
All right, good morning. Today is August 3rd, 2021, and this is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Kings County Board of Supervisors. Due to issues arising from COVID-19, the board is using a WebEx teleconferencing format for today's meeting and may be participating via the World Wide Web. If you'd like to make a public comment through the teleconferencing format today, please make sure that you are identified by name in the WebEx system. For those interested in commenting during unscheduled appearances at 9 a.m., please use the raise your hand feature and wait to be recognized. You will be allowed up to 2 minutes for public comment. Members in the audience who have filled out a speaker card will be taken in the order that they were received by the clerk, and online speakers will be taken in the order that they appear in the WebEx program showing that their hand is up. If you wish to speak today and are having issues with the raise your hand feature, in WebEx, please physically raise your hand so that we may see you and wait to be recognized. Each vote today will be a verbal or voice vote so that members of the public can hear out each board member has voted. After we have had a motion and a second regarding each item we are taking up today, there will be a roll call vote by district. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Joe Nevs.
Here.
Richard Valley.
Here.
Doug Verboon.
Here.
Craig Peterson.
Here.
Richard Fagundes.
Here.
Okay, we have 5 in attendance this morning. So at this time, we'll move to the invocation, and we have Pastor Brian Kleinhammer, Kingdom Culture 2.0. Good morning.
Good morning. Let us pray. Father God, let your Holy Spirit hover over these proceedings. Let your spirit of wisdom influence all decisions and protect this county from the prevalence of the Delta variant. Deliver aid to all of those in our state who are about to lose their housing and bestow hope upon all of your children. In Jesus' name, amen.
Please join me in the flag salute. Ready? Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, it's nice to see we have a few folks in the audience this morning. That's a good sign, right? Okay, at this time, we'll move to item 2, which is unscheduled appearances. Any person may directly address the board at this time on any item on the agenda or other items of interest to the public that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. 2 minutes are allowed for each item.
For clarification, I do have one speaker who's filled out a card and he's from the public. If we can allow him to go first. Mr. Tafoya, if you come forward, please.
Good morning, members of the board. The last time I was here, I mentioned to you that we had a vaccine clinic at Immaculate Heart on July 11th, and we had 38 folks vaccinated, which we thought was a really good number. And I mentioned on July 23rd, we had 17 folks in Ramona vaccinated, which I thought was a really good number. I'd also shared with you that this past Sunday, August 1st, we were going to host another vaccine clinic at Immaculate Heart of Mary. You ready for these numbers? 75 were vaccinated that day, 75. 45 of those were a first dose. 23 of those were a second dose. And I think a big factor in that was follow-up calls. Our community-based organization, Valley Voices, called up the folks that had gotten their first dose on the July 11th event and just reminded them, don't forget about your second dose. Interestingly enough, we had several folks come in who did get their second dose. They had gotten their first dose at a previous time, but never made it to their second dose. And that is a concern that maybe some people are getting their first dose, but they're not having their second dose either because there isn't a follow-up call or someone checking in on them. Are you arriving for your second dose? I think that was really important. We also vaccinated 23 that were underage, 12 to 17. I think that was a nice, good number as well. But we ran out of vaccines, unfortunately, so we had to refer 15 people over to Kings County Drive, where they were also having a vaccine clinic that Sunday. It's good to see that there are clinics on Sundays, very helpful for a lot of our folks who work Monday through Saturday. So I think that's very important that the county's doing that. That's fantastic. We did knock on 236 doors prior to the clinic. I think that's important, getting those boots on the ground, talking to folks. We spoke to 85 people, and we do ask people, how did you hear about the clinic? And a lot of them mentioned someone knocked on our door and spoke to us. Someone actually called us. We flyered at 15 businesses. Thank you to those businesses here in Hanford who posted our flyers. It was just a team effort from the Diocese of Fresno to Adventist Health of Central California to Father Efrain at Immaculate Heart for hosting this clinic, and for the team of Valley Voices who just knocked on doors even when it was very, very hot. And sometimes we have doors slammed on our faces, but that's okay. We smile and we thank them and we go to the next door and so forth. It's just a team effort. I call this synergy. And it just put a big smile on our faces. I wanted to share that with the board because we're doing it the best we can. And if any of you are interested in hosting a clinic in your jurisdiction, do reach out to us. We'll do the legwork for you because we don't want to surrender our county to the Delta variant, to the pandemic. We want this to be a team effort. Thank you for your time, everybody, and have a nice day.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Dave Robinson, Kings County Sheriff. Just to give everybody a little peace of mind this morning, as you were driving in, if you saw smoke coming from the jail, we had a patrol car catch on fire in the Sally Port. Nobody was hurt. We did send a couple folks to the hospital for some smoke inhalation, a couple of staff members, but we don't suspect, I'm just putting some rumors to rest. We don't suspect any foul play. We're not releasing any inmates because of the fire, and everybody's going to be okay. But special thanks to the fire department, Hanford Fire. I'm not sure if County Fire came out too, but we did have a patrol car catch on fire and it burned up pretty good. So just wanted to let everybody know in case you saw the fire trucks and the smoke come from the jail this morning. Thank you. I left you a couple Post-it notes there too, Larry. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Keith Fagundes, Kings County District Attorney. Wanted to update you again on our trial from last week. It did result in a guilty verdict. It was assault on a peace officer along with a weapons charge. That sentencing will be next week. Last week, we completed all of the nearly 17 to 1,800 hearings that were scheduled. This week, we saw a drop in only 1,300 hearings scheduled this week. And we were not able to get any trials off the ground, even though our staff was ready, prepared, and announced ready for trial for yesterday. The court granted a defense continuance because they were not prepared. So I do anticipate, given the higher numbers of COVID, that we may slip back to one trial a week. So we could see our trials being impacted again. We did drop our numbers from 162 trials up to the end of the year down to 119. So that's through plea negotiations and trials being done at a higher rate. So with that, our staff is plugging away. Everybody is still working hard, and we are making headway on the backlog and the trials that we do have. So we won't stop that. Thank you.
You.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Josh Cunningham, Assistant Fire Chief, Kings County Fire Department. I want to give you a quick update on your fire department. Currently, we have 19 personnel out of county fighting the wildfires in California. That's 3 battalion chiefs, 3 of our Type 3 vehicles, and 2 of our Type 6s. The lion's share of them are still on the Dixie incident. Yesterday became the 11th biggest fire in the state history. It's at 249,635 acres and 35% contained. About 24 hours ago, new fire started. I forgot the name of it. It's up in Shasta Trinity. It's currently 4,256 acres, 0% contained, and one of our Type 3s and one of our single resources are on that fire. And so that's where they're at today. Dozer 9 did come back from a cover assignment. It was out 13 days. It's kind of good to have it back. Carl's the only operator right now, so we gave him a couple of days off to get him to recoup. And then Monday, with the help of HR and the district attorney and the sheriff, we were able to hire our second dozer operator. So he started training on Monday. So hopefully in a couple of weeks, we could turn him loose and give Carl some more days off. And that's great news. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you. All right. Looks like that concludes our unscheduled appearances. This time, then we'll move to item 3, which is approval of the minutes. And item 3A is report out on closed session on July 27th, 2021. Mr. Fikes.
Your board took no reportable action in closed session last week.
Very good, thank you. And we'll move to item B, which is approval of minutes from the July 27th, 2021 regular meeting. Board, it's your pleasure.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Neb seconds.
We have a motion and second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley,
Aye.
Doug Verboon,
Yes.
Craig Peterson,
Aye.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes.
Okay, we have 5 in favor, motion carries. We'll now move to the consent calendar and just for the board's information, item 4B from the fire department, 4B1 has been pulled. So with that, board.
Neb moves to adopt the consent calendar as amended.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley,
Aye.
Doug Verboon,
Yes.
Craig Peterson,
Aye.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes.
Right, we have 5 in favor, motion carries. We'll now move to item 5, which is regular agenda items, and we'll start with 5A, which comes from Child Support Services. See Ms. Waite is in the audience, welcome.
Good morning, Chairman and members of the board. Marie Waite, Child Support Services. My team and I have prepared a presentation to communicate the facts about the Department of Child Support Services. August is Child Support Awareness Month. State of California comes up with a theme, and this year it's Get the Facts About California Child Support Services. Office of the Governor letter is annually written proclaiming August as Child Support Awareness Month. The letter is displayed to highlight a portion of the last paragraph, which reads, "The state is committed to offering services that are more flexible and responsive to the needs of California's diverse families than ever before. California's Child Support Services is here to help you better understand your rights and responsibilities, assist you with the complexities of the system, and foster your best connection to kids." Statewide strategic plan. The statewide strategic plan consists of the following goals and 13 tactics. I'll review each of the 5 goals and provide one tactic for you to see an example of how to accomplish the goal. Goal 1, facilitate consistent support for children with a tactic to recognize and provide individualized services to customers. Goal 2, strengthen customer engagement with a tactic to reduce the complexity of the customer service experience. Goal 3, enhance program performance with a tactic to promote consistency of processes statewide. Goal 4, build collaborative partnerships to benefit families with a tactic to establish new partnerships to help reduce poverty. Goal 5, foster innovation and improve service delivery with a tactic to modernize and development to delivery of products. So this next slide I'm the most excited about. This is something that we've been actively working on in 2021 in our department, was to redo our mission and vision and values and to make it specific to what we see in the future for us here at Kings. So with that being said, we started off with a work group. We had individuals throughout the department participate on this, and our mission is to promote brighter futures for children by helping families provide consistent financial and medical support. Our vision is to meet the evolving needs of the community by improving access to the programs that positively impact families. And then what do we value? We value children. And so it's spelled out in our acronym. C is for communication, establish reliable and open discussions. H is for honesty, focus on openness and transparency in all circumstances. I is for innovation, maximize the use of technology to transform and elevate the programs while expanding the presence on social media platforms. D is for dependability, make a difference by helping families secure financial and medical support. R is for relationships, develop and maintain healthy and trustworthy partnerships. E is for education, provide outreach and knowledge to current and future customers. N is for nurturing, work within program parameters, maintain integrity, display empathy, and remain accountable to the public. Did you know Child Support Services reduces the need for public assistance, increases parental involvement, achieves higher test scores, higher percentage finish high school, attend college, and we are actively reducing poverty rate by 25%. We have 8,000 534 cases in Kings. There are 3 types of cases. 21% are currently on assistance, 61% former assistance, and 18% never assisted. Child Support Services is a state and federally mandated safety net program. In 2019-2020, Kings County allocation was $4,253,265. The funding ratio for the program is 66% federal government, 34% state of California. Collections. Collections are reviewed on a federal fiscal year, starting annually on October 1st, and concluding on September 30th. In federal fiscal year 2019-2020, the state of California collected $3 billion. In Kings County, 17.9 million. Of the 17.9, over 10 million was collected for current support. We are proud Kings Child Support Services team is ranked 8. So we are in the top 10 of the 49 local child support agencies. We're working diligently to serve families at all times. Our customers served 17,374. Children served 8,687. We have 47 team members totaling 540 years of county service. 25% of our staff have over 20 years of Kings County service. This is a great deal of longevity and commitment on my team. Kings County Department of Child Support Services requests that your board adopt a proclamation declaring August as Child Support Awareness Month. As you saw, we have a beautiful display in your window as you walked in this morning as well. As future reference, I am listed on here as well as my program manager, and I am now available for any questions.
Very good. Thank you. Questions from the board?
Very good.
Questions, comments? At this point, board, we will need to act on this.
Accept the resolution as presented. Thank you, Maria. Appreciate that.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley,
Aye.
Doug Verboon,
Yes.
Craig Peterson,
Aye.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes.
Okay, we have 5 in favor. Motion carries. Thanks for your presentation today. Okay, we'll move now to item 5B, which is Human Resources Department.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. Carolyn Lease, Principal Personnel Analyst with Human Resources. The Department of Child Support Services requested in their fiscal year budget 21-22 the deletion of 4 Department Specialist 1-2 positions and the addition of 4 Child Support Assistant positions as part of a reorganization in the department. As part of this reorganization, Human Resources was asked to review the classifications. Based on the review, HR is requesting approval of the revised job specification for Child Support Assistant and to approve a salary adjustment of 5 salary ranges, which is approximately 5% for the Child Support Assistant classification, from range 145.5 to range 150.5, effective pay period 17-2021, which is beginning August 9th, 2021. The Department Specialist 2s are currently at range 150.5, so there is no fiscal impact with this change, and the union has reviewed the proposed changes. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Yeah, thank you. Questions from the board? Okay, we have a motion and second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley,
Aye.
Doug Verboon,
Yes.
Craig Peterson,
Aye.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes.
Okay, we have 5 in favor. Motion carries. Thank you. Right, next we'll move to item 5C, which is Public Health Department, and it's presenting today.
Hello, this is Michelle Bieber,
Good morning.
Nutrition Services Manager with the Department of Public Health. Good morning, Chairman and members of the board. So I am here with the presentation for the resolution to proclaim August as National Breastfeeding Month in Kings County. Before the Board of Supervisors of the County of Kings, State of California, August 3, 2021, in the matter of proclaiming the month of August as National Breastfeeding Month. Whereas all major medical authorities recommend exclusive human milk feeding for the first 6 months of life, with continued human milk feeding for at least 1 year. Whereas the U.S. Breastfeeding Committee designates August as National Breastfeeding Month, and the World Alliance for Breastfeeding Action designates August 1 through 7 as World Breastfeeding Week. Whereas National Breastfeeding Month focuses on the use of data and measurement to build and reinforce the connections between human milk feeding and a broad spectrum of other health topics and initiatives. Whereas National Breastfeeding Month and World Breastfeeding Week provide important opportunities to address barriers to human milk feeding faced by families across the United States and around the world. Whereas human milk feeding is the biological norm for infant feeding and a proven primary prevention strategy that builds a foundation for lifelong health and wellness. Whereas the evidence of the value of human milk feeding to the health of the birthing parent and the child is scientific, solid, and continually reaffirmed by research. Whereas the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention publishes an annual breastfeeding report card that consistently shows suboptimal breastfeeding initiation rates and substantial declines in continued and exclusive breastfeeding as babies grow. Whereas there are substantial racial and ethnic disparities in access to lactation support, resulting in reduced breastfeeding rates and an associated increase in risk for a variety of negative health outcomes. Whereas in recognition of these disparities, the second week of August is celebrated as Native Breastfeeding Week. The third week of August is celebrated as Asian American, Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Breastfeeding Week, and the fourth week of August is celebrated as Black Breastfeeding Week. Whereas the Healthy People 2020 initiative consistently identifies breastfeeding as a national health priority, whereas the great majority of new parents want their infants to receive human milk but face significant barriers in the community, healthcare, and employment settings. Whereas some people may choose not to breastfeed or are unable to do so. However, all parents benefit from access to infant nutrition and wellness education. Whereas studies confirm human milk is the most developmentally appropriate nourishment for infants. Whereas protecting and supporting human milk feeding is essential to ensuring critical food security and immunologic protection for Kings County's youngest people. And whereas the consistent and well-documented health, economic, and environmental benefits of human milk feeding show support for breastfeeding is an investment that will continue to produce measurable dividends across the country and many times over for families, employers, and the government. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of Supervisors of the County of Kings, State of California, does hereby proclaim the month of August as National Public Breastfeeding Month and urges all citizens to observe this week. Thank you.
Thank you. All righty. I don't know if we're going to have an arm wrestling event, maybe rock, paper, scissors to see who's the king of the month of August, but at least with that, what's your pleasure?
Move is outlined, Mr. Chair. Nebs moves.
Okay. Second. I have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call roll.
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Good job. Good job. That's a heck of a lot of whereas.
Your
Richard
microphone
Valley.
is still on.
Aye.
Doug Verboon,
Yes.
Craig Peterson,
Aye.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes.
Okay, we have 5 in favor, motion carries. We'll now move to item 5C2.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board, Darcy Pickens, Better Public Health. Great to see all of you this morning. Another proclamation for you. I come before your board today to request the adoption of a proclamation declaring August 2021 as Valley Fever Awareness Month in Kings County. Valley fever, also referred to as coccidioidomycosis or COXY, is a progressive multi-system respiratory disorder caused by the inhalation of fungal spores that live in the soil and is endemic throughout much of the Central Valley, including here in Kings. These spores are released into the air by soil disturbances such as digging, dust storms, and wind. Researchers estimate that the fungus infects more than 150,000 people each year who suffer serious ailments without knowing the cause of their illness or otherwise escape detection of the disease. In 2019, 18,407 cases of valley fever were reported in the US, 40% of those cases in California. There's an estimated 90% of those cases that are either from California or Arizona. Kings County actually has the second highest rate of COXY in the state, and we had 217 cases in 2019, identified cases. About 50 to 60% of individuals with valley fever may have mild symptoms or even no symptoms at all, but another 40 to 50% develop illness severe enough to prompt the person to seek out medical care. Of those cases, about 5% go on to have what is known as disseminated disease, a serious form of the illness where the fungus spreads to other parts of the body, including the skin, bones, lining of the brain and spinal cord, lymph nodes, and or vital organs. This is where, of course, we see the most severe cases of valley fever that do the most damage. Persons at risk for disseminated disease include diabetics, people of African American or Filipino ancestry, children younger than 5 or adults older than 50, women in their 3rd trimester of pregnancy, and people with compromised immune systems such as cancer patients, HIV patients, and the like. Depending on the severity of symptoms, valley fever can also cause longer-term complications such as chronic progressive pneumonia, pulmonary nodules that can easily be mistaken for cancer. Nodules themselves may not do anything, but they do typically cause unnecessary testing for the patient. If left untreated, disseminated disease can lead to meningitis, which of course is a much more severe condition and can be fatal. Misdiagnosis of valley fever is so pervasive that experts say some people suffer and even die from valley fever without ever knowing they had the disease. Studies have shown that people seeking medical care for symptoms who had knowledge of the disease were more likely to receive an earlier diagnosis than those who were unaware of the condition. This makes a resolution acknowledging its impact and ongoing education efforts particularly important as we continue to try to raise awareness. The health department will also be launching a new valley fever website later this week, and we hope to highlight this resolution as part of that release. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Very good, thank you. Questions from the board?
Steph, second.
Very good. We have a motion and second. Madam Clerk, please call roll.
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley,
Aye.
Doug Verboon,
Yes.
Craig Peterson,
Aye.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes.
Good, we have 5 in favor.
Thank you
Let
so
the
much.
games begin. All righty. At this time, we'll move to item 5D1, administration.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Matthew Boyette, Administrative Analyst here in the Administration Office. On May 19th, 2021, the board and the Kings County Association of Governments, also known as KCAG, received a grand jury report titled Pedestrian Safety in Kettleman City, a community's longstanding plea for improvements, which investigated pedestrian crossing safety concerns at State Route 41 and General Petroleum Avenue there in Kettleman City. So pursuant to Section 933 of the California Penal Code, the board and KCAG are listed as required responses to the grand jury's investigation, which includes findings and recommendations that I'll lay out here for you shortly. KCAG's draft response, which was approved by the legal counsel, was submitted to the county on July 25th, 2021, and has been prepared for your review and consideration as the board's official response. So with that, finding number one in the report stated that over the past 16 years, various discussions, studies, and resulting documentation have produced few tangible improvements towards reducing danger of pedestrians crossing 41 in Kettleman City, to which KCAG's response was that they partially agree. In 2010, KCAG underwent a Kettleman City safety and community study to analyze pedestrian safety at State Route 41, which identified design concept drawings for improvements at State Route 41 and General Petroleum from 25th Avenue to the proposed North Street. And such studies have led to the county being awarded funding by Caltrans for 2 applications for projects related to pedestrian and bicycle improvements at State Route 41 and General Petroleum Avenue. KCAG staff also supported a statewide coalition effort to submit a budget proposal to the governor's administration for a $2 billion one-time allocation for the active transportation program from the state's unanticipated general fund surplus, which could have funded the county's 2021 Cycle 5 application for pedestrian safety improvements along Becky P. Street there in Kettleman City. However, the governor's May revise did not include sufficient funding to award this project because it didn't score high enough to meet the state's funding thresholds. And the grand jury's recommendation for finding number one is that the board should direct County Public Works and County Community Development Agency to submit their recommendations for next steps to be taken by the county towards making tangible improvements to address dangers faced by pedestrians in Kettleman City on a daily basis. To which KCAG's response was that they agree and that they would support Public Works and CDA's efforts in seeking recommendations on next steps towards addressing pedestrian safety in Kettleman City, and would be pleased to submit letters of support for grant applications surrounding needed improvements. And KCAG also recommends that the county meet with Caltrans to discuss the issues to determine the process to be undertaken in order to construct improvements on State Route 41. The second finding in the report stated that signage along State Route 41 approaching the Kettleman City residential area is inadequate to alert drivers to a crosswalk ahead, to which KCAG's response was that they partially agree, although any improvement in signage would be a significant benefit to improve pedestrian safety. Signage on State Route 41 is the responsibility of Caltrans, and adequacy of signage is determined in accordance with standards set forth by the state, as Caltrans is the owner and operator of the state highway system. And the grand jury's recommendation for this finding is that Public Works, County Public Works should strongly advocate for any and all signage, including the solar-powered flashing beacons used by Caltrans in many of the state highway systems, be installed along northbound and southbound approaches to the residential crosswalk at State Route 41 and General Petroleum Avenue. To which KCAG's response to the recommendation was that they agree and that they actually meet with Caltrans staff quarterly to discuss current projects on the state highway system, and it provides comments on other transportation related issues. And KCAG regularly involves local agency public works staff to attend the meetings where they can actually advocate for the improvements under consideration. And the third and final finding of the report states that the safest long-term solution to reducing the danger for pedestrians, particularly school-aged children in Kettleman City, is to construct a pedestrian bridge spanning State Route 41. To which KCAG response is that they agree. However, as with any transportation improvement plan, the cost of the improvement is always a factor for local agencies. And the grand jury recommendation for the third finding is that the board should direct relevant county departments to seek funding from all potential sources outlined in the noted studies to support the construction of a pedestrian bridge there in Kettleman City. To which KCAG's response was that they agree, and if needed, they're still available to assist the county in seeking additional funding for construction of a pedestrian bridge. So with those three findings, responses, and recommendations, the recommendation before your board this morning is the review of the Kings County Association of Governments response to the grand jury report titled Pedestrian Safety in Kettleman City, a Community's Longstanding Plea for Improvements, and approve the Kings County Association of Governments response as the board's response to the grand jury report. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions that you may have. Thank you.
You guys think?
Chairman?
Yes, Supervisor Valley.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Matthew, did you get a chance to talk with Dominique as I met with him yesterday by phone on the response letter?
I have not talked to Dominic yet or Chuck on the response yet.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, the KCAG's letter is appreciated. First of all, I want to thank the grand jury for their service as always and appreciate them, their time and effort on this report. That being said, Mr. Chairman, KCAG's letter is good for them, but it's lacking as far as a response from the County of Kings. And so when I spoke to Dominic yesterday, I suggested that he go through that letter and update that so we don't just copy and paste. The action today is to accept the version of the KCAG letter as the county's response, and this letter is not detailed enough. So, Mr. Chairman, since we don't have the draft here, Dominic suggested to me that he'd have some draft language ready for us today, as I didn't want to catch the board off guard on my concerns on this letter. So, for example, finding number 3, as it relates to the pedestrian bridge, we all know that we took action on that. We not only did we make it our number 1 priority as documented in the grand jury report, to go after earmarked funding on the congressional side. It should be updated to include the fact that due to efforts, Assemblymember Rudy Salas responded to our request for $2 million for the of funding for the construction of this bridge. We're going to be getting that check presented to the county on August 12th. I've put that out there the last couple of meetings. Also should be updated and include the fact that on the federal side, Senator Padilla currently has an additional $2 million request for funding for this bridge on the federal side of funding there. Also with that, Mr. Chair, just looking at findings 1 and 2, there are a lot that the county, if the county took the time to add to the response in finding 1 and finding 2. And I say that because I don't want this document to go out as official record as it would be, and it does not give the county enough credit. This is a highlighted area, at least in my career, where I can say the Board of Supervisors and I have worked together on this community. The board has been supportive in funding for curb, gutter, and sidewalk for the community. Last year in the budget, we passed a funding plan to go get millions of dollars to come back in the form of a loan as part of that funding plan to go and construct a huge chunk of Kettleman City, if not the whole west side, if not the whole portion of Kettleman community to the west of Highway 41. Additionally, we're very close to construction on additional curb, gutter, and sidewalk. None of that is in here, Mr. Chairman, and so I guess with that being said, for the lack of having the language ready today, I'd like to ask if the board would table this letter till next week, give Dominic and Matthew an opportunity to connect and beef up the letter with more facts and findings on the overall efforts of the County of Kings. I think I don't want to say we deserve credit for that, Mr. Chairman, but it's Word documented, it's on the record, and we should treat this response very seriously and put a bit more effort in it. And so if that takes a motion, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask the board to consider a motion of just bringing this back next week, and so we can pass a better version of it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for hearing me out.
Yep, thank you. So I guess there is a motion on the floor. Okay. Dominic, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dominic Taberski, Public Works. To echo Supervisor Valley, State Assembly Member Rudy Salas did include $2 million for the Kettleman City pedestrian bridge, which was part of more than $73 million in the state budget for Valley communities. Additionally, and I believe some of these improvements are included in the grand jury report, but Public Works sponsored radar feedback signs on State Route 41, both entering north and south of the residential community. Additionally, we have an ATP project that has been awarded to a contractor that's to add pedestrian pathway on State Route 41 and also to add rectangular flashing beacons, which are pedestrian activated at the crosswalk. Additionally, those communicate with a beacon that is upstream in both directions to notify motorists of the upcoming crossing. In addition, as Supervisor Valley mentioned, 5 or 6 years ago, we completed a Safe Routes to School project, which added curb, gutter, and sidewalk. We also rebuilt the streets. We've selected a consultant to do the design for the remainder of the curb, gutter, and sidewalk in the community. And we're actively pursuing a USDA loan to fund the initial phase of that work. And then ultimately, our plan is to secure community development block grant funding for the full build out. So there are a number of improvements that have occurred or are in the works. And I do think it would be appropriate to amend the response to add those features.
Very good. Thank you. Supervisor Boone.
Oh, a couple questions. So first one is, I don't know if I saw it in the report here, but how many vehicle versus pedestrian accidents have we had in that area?
So I don't have that data. There is not a significant amount of actual accidents. It's more of a preventative safety measure. As you know, it's a very busy highway. Speeds tend to be much higher than they should be. And in order to provide a safe passage, for the pedestrians, primarily, the kids going to school, we initiated this crossing improvement. And then, of course, the bridge has been something that's been discussed for a number of years. So, if you're looking for a cost benefit ratio, in terms of actual accidents, I don't know that we have that data, but we're trying to get ahead of the curve before we have those.
I'm just trying to put it in perspective. I know 16 years on the school board, we tried to get a crosswalk at Everett Drive and 11th Avenue, which was half mile between two intersections. And we had a couple of accidents with kids that get hit by cars, one almost fatal. And when I presented it to the city or whoever had to do at the time to get a crosswalk, they always told me it was a false sense of security. They didn't want people crossing the street there. So I don't know how the state feels about that, but that was a concern. And the next thing is on KCAG, Terry's here today. So what would that do to the process if we table this and we go back to you? We have to bring it back at the next board meeting for KC, Kings Association of Governments? Okay. That wouldn't mess you up at all. Okay. I'll go ahead and second that. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I add two things real quick?
Sure.
And thank you for the second, Supervisor Boone. Mr. Chairman, I remember the letters that we got in the campaign, all of the support letters we got from the community. Firefighters Association was one of the letters that came in. But going out there and talking to firefighters at that intersection in Kettleman, I asked them the question that Super Boone just asked as far as any accidents, and it is the near misses, and the words they used was that they cringe sometimes. Their station is right there, just to the south of that intersection, and the principal, Christy Castillo, has witnessed multiple near misses. spoke to several of the families and the children that actually crossed there, and they tell stories about their little sister, their little brother almost getting hit. They are fearful. So I know that they really appreciate the county's efforts here. And then one thing, Mr. Chairman, for Dominic and Matthew, can you do something about the last paragraph as it goes into findings? The last paragraph in the grand jury report states that state and county government representatives have repeatedly held the position that the cost of a pedestrian bridge was not feasible or not warranted. That language right there, as far as it relates to the county, I'd submit, Mr. Chair, that that's not true. I've never heard anyone on the Board of Supervisors or staff or Mr. Spikes over the years say that that is not feasible. What I've heard is from day one is we asked, going back to 2009 when I came on board, was that it was in fact Caltrans. The county, we just knew Caltrans was not, this was not at the top of a priority list for any money to come and build this, but that line bothers me there. The county has been always looking to do something about this, and I'm very grateful that we're doing something about it right now. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure how that plays into the motion that was made, I guess, other than to table the item at this point.
For consideration for as they look through it. I'll leave the motion as is, though. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Could I get clarification again, the motion? Please.
Supervisor Peterson, my understanding of the motion was that this matter be tabled, so whether or not we adopt the KCAG's letter be tabled, so that we can determine whether or not the county wants to add more information, and that Mr. Tyberski and Mr. Boyette would be working to add that additional information to present to the board either next week or at a future board date.
Thank you. One last question, Dominic, before we go to the vote. With respect to the total cost of the project, I mean, have we updated anything with reference to cost? Is that in your shop or is that?
For the pedestrian overcrossing?
Yeah.
Well, it depends who you talk to. According to Caltrans, they're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of $9 million, but that's if it were to be a Caltrans project. My estimate at this point is somewhere in the neighborhood of $5 million. So we've already secured the 2 million. We're working to secure an additional $2 million. And then the remaining balance would either come from Highway User Tax Fund or SB1 dollars.
Okay. And then right of ways to build it. I mean, those
we would have to acquire right of way. Yes.
Okay. And so then there would be a cost associated with that as well.
Correct. That would be part of that $5 million.
Okay. And all right. So is that an acquisition from the state and their property, or is that outside of the?
It'd be outside of the state right of way.
Okay.
Yeah, they would not want the bridge to touch down within their right of way.
Great. With that, we do have a motion on the table, on the table. And so with that, Madam Clerk, would you please call her?
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley,
Aye.
Doug Verboon,
Yes.
Craig Peterson,
Aye.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes.
Okay, we have 5 in favor to table this item. And now we will move to our next item, which is item 5E1 from the Public Health Department.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Ed Hill, Public Health. This is my weekly update. I'm going to start my presentation as I always do by reminding everybody of the simple steps we can take to prevent the spread of communicable diseases such as COVID-19. Those are frequently wash your hands for 20 seconds or more. Don't touch your face with unwashed hands. Stay home if you're hydrated, or excuse me, stay home if you're sick. Stay hydrated with water. A hydrated cell is a healthy cell. Wear a face mask, continue to protect yourselves and those unvaccinated around you, and get vaccinated. Just a reminder, these are all toolkits that we all have at our disposal to help prevent the spread of any virus. Our daily numbers are available on our website. We continue to watch hospital data closely. Regional hospital admissions and general admissions or med surge and ICU continue to increase. Admissions at our local hospital has also continued to increase. As of 8/1/2021, the local hospital had 27 patients in med surge and 2 patients in the intensive care unit. Of those admitted, only 13 were Kings County residents. Reminder that hospitals work on a regional basis, so they admit from all over. Again, since July 1st, the unvaccinated COVID patients have accounted for about 88% of the hospital admissions, leaving 11% to be to be vaccinated or breakthrough cases. Our PPE status for the county is still not changed. We still maintain a 60-day supply of PPE for all of our healthcare facilities. The mobile testing program site schedule for this week is on our website. Also this week, we met with the Sheriff's Office, Probation, Public Works, Behavioral Health, and Risk to address the state's new requirements on testing for these organizations. And we've come up with a plan that won't be so significantly impact them, just other than some minor logistical challenges that we have worked through. We continue to see an increase in cases. We had 354 new cases last week, bringing our new case count since the new surge began to 792. Last week, I reported that the most significant increase in cases were in the 12 to 15 population and the 20 to 49. Last week, the 12 to 15 age group has seemed to slow, but it is still increasing. The 20 to 49 is still the age group that is increasing at the most. And we are starting to see a slight increase in the 0 to 11 age population. Our Delta variant case count has increased to 20 this week. And as a reminder, I point out to your board that the state testing lab is behind on these values, and we do anticipate these numbers to continue to increase moving forward. The variant continues to spread, and it's currently at 4,064 reported cases in the state of California. And again, we also believe this number to be underreported as the state lab catches up with the sequencing of these samples. We, Public Health, continue to modify our staff roles to accommodate the new cases. We're pulling as many staff as we can off their regular programs to assist with case investigation and contact tracing. And we're working with HR to get us some additional help as we move forward. We're also looking to execute contracts for assistance with our community-based organization and partners such as Valley Voices. They're going to be a great partner moving forward. On the vaccine front, we have moved our vaccine clinic from the day reporting center on Kings Drive over to the Public Health Auditorium. We got to a point where probation needed that space back, and we were finally at a point at Public Health where we could open up that space and offer it at that clinic. Last week, Public Health administered 260 vaccines, which is an increase, and it's a good sign if the trend continues. We've also seen an increase in vaccine demand, which is also a good sign. We've seen a 30 to 40% increase in vaccine administrations just this week by Public Health. And as a reminder, we only report Public Health numbers because we can't see the numbers for all the other organizations. We can just see the total. But we are seeing great increases, and it's because of efforts like organizations like Valley Voices, the hospitals, the federally qualified healthcare centers. Our incentive program has really taken off, and just, the folks in the county are finally starting to get the message. I think the Delta variant and increasing cases is starting to drive that vaccine demand. So again, that's a good sign. We continue to have plenty of vaccine available appointments. We have the capacity to do 700 doses a day. As pointed out, we're open during the weekends. We've been open during the weekends since we got vaccine availability in large quantities so that we can make sure we take care of the folks who work Monday through Friday. And we continue to work with organizations to add up pop-up clinics, and those requests continue to increase, which is again a good sign. So far, Kings County providers have administered 92,951 vaccines to county residents. And on May 14th, we started vaccinating the 12 to 15 population. And so far, we've administered 3,407 vaccines to that population. We're still working with the state to correct their data reporting issues as it relates to Corcoran and Avenal. If you recall, they're including the inmates in the eligible population, but not the vaccinated inmates in the vaccinated population, which is driving those numbers down. So they're underreported significantly. If we do adjust for those and we look at residents that have had at least one dose, that number increases for Corcoran to 49%, and for Avenal increases to 66%, which is a pretty stark difference compared to what's being reported on the state website. Our current breakthrough cases rate is at 0.3% again, so we haven't seen much change there. And again, those breakthrough cases are happening 3% for the J&J, 2% for the Moderna, and 2% for the Pfizer. This is commensurate with recent data released from Oklahoma State on their vaccine breakthrough cases, as well as Minnesota. And just as a reminder, those are acceptable. We were expecting that. We knew that the J&J had a less efficacy than the other vaccines, but they're holding with what's been advertised or promised by not only the manufacturers, but the FDA and the CDC. So the takeaway today, again, is the virus still isn't going anywhere. We're going to expect to be in this new wave for probably mid-September to the end of September. Hopefully that'll be the end of it. There will be another wave after that, likely. So again, make sure you do those things to protect yourself. Use everything in your toolkit. Get vaccinated. Wear a face covering. Stay away from large gatherings. Stay home if you're sick. Things along those lines. That concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Questions from the board? Supervisor Valley.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Hey, Mr. Hill, did you see this new graph that the state put out? I saw it last night on a press release, but you click on this link, and they're graphing data by by county based on who has the highest percentages of spread going on in the county right now. And Kings County was listed and labeled as a red county, which red is the highest. And I think it said that to get to that level, you had to be at 100 cases plus per 100,000. Are you familiar with what I'm talking about there?
Supervisor Valley, through the chair, I think you're referring to the state has adopted the CDC model for color ranking for the counties and the states. That is correct. I have looked at that model. We're anticipating that if the state does institute any type of ranking, they're going to follow that ranking. Kings County is a county that has a lot of spread, as mentioned earlier, with our low vaccine rates. That was anticipated, and we can continue to expect to see that if our vaccine rates don't improve.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hill. That was a little concerning seeing that last night. One thing I did want to just share through this too, and you probably reported this, Mr. Hill, but yesterday I saw this link, and it was very easy. It was you go to my vaccine record on the state website. It takes less than a minute, and you get a personal digital vaccine record. So if you've been vaccinated, you go there, you plug in your cell phone number, your date of birth, and your name, and a half a second later, you'll get a text with a link. You open the link, and there's the barcode there. You just you take a photo, a snapshot on that from your screen, and you save it. And if you ever need that for anything, you pull that up, and it can be scanned, and your vaccine record comes up. So that is very nice and very easy. So I just want to help share that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, thank you, Supervisor Valley, through the chair. I did report that when that system came online, and then we do have a link to that from our website as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good work.
Very good. Thank you. Further questions?
Mr. Chair, this is Larry Spikes, interim CAO. Just wanted to bring to your board's attention, I'd be remiss if I didn't let you know that we have 27 positive cases right now amongst Kings County employees, of which that consists of around 270 contacts. And staff through Sandy Huddleston has been working to make the appropriate, through the health center, people get quarantined as a result, obviously, and anybody who's been contacted gets quarantined as well. If they are able to work, if they're just quarantined and not sick, then we will allow them to work off-site, as we were doing previously. If they're sick, and they shouldn't be. But to the extent that somebody has to be quarantined because of contact, they also would be in that category. Of course, many people, they can't do their jobs remotely. So in those cases, they would just have to be off and be utilizing whatever's available to them in terms of leave. So with that, though, I do want to bring to your attention, the California Department of Public Health actually is indicating that local government should be requiring, in fact, there are certain settings where we are required to have face masks for everyone, whether vaccinated or not. And then also we're supposed to be requiring face masks for individuals who are not vaccinated. That is supposed to be required as we speak. More counties are going going forward with mandates of masks as a result of this latest surge. But many cities are indicating that they're not going to enforce that. And so I guess at this point, I think that your board needs to be aware of what we're supposed to be doing pursuant to California Department of Public Health and whether or not you want to reconsider the face covering issue or not. But it's up to your board, obviously, if you want to proceed with anything different as we speak today. I do understand, based on our conversations with Mr. Hill, that we're seeing a doubling of the cases every day that are presently going on, and it is going to be like the fourth surge that we're going to experience. So with that, just want to bring that to your board's attention if you'd like to take any action along those lines.
Okay, very good. Bring it back to the board. Supervisor Valley.
Yeah, no, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just submit to Mr. Spikes. Well, first, thank you for that update, Mr. Spikes. That if as with anything, if you see something that puts the county at risk or something where you feel action needs to be taken that you're recommending as a CAO, then I would just say agendize it and put it on for next week. Taking the conversation up right now, I don't know how that would go, but just out of respect for the board, drop it on the agenda. That's my opinion, Mr. Chair. Secondly, as Mr. Spikes, as you reported, the 27 employees, some of them who just can't work based on the examples that you laid out. Did I hear right that they're just depending on whatever leave is available? And so if there is no leave available, do we have employees who are losing out on money? Because if that's the case, I think that's something that the board would need to take action on very swiftly as well. Can you clarify? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I'm not aware of anybody, again, it's Larry Spikes, interim CAO. I'm not aware of anybody who's in that position. What I was referring to was the amount of leave that was allocated specifically for this, which some people may or may not have gone through, but then they're in their sick leave bank. But I'm not aware of anybody who is in a position where they're losing money.
If they're getting quarantine, because somebody has it, I think in fairness that we need to figure something out again. And also just not out of their personal sick leave. I mean, that's there, when you get sick. And in this case, if this is a Delta variant, which I don't think I heard you say that it was actually the Delta variant, but we know that the health experts are saying it's anywhere from 10 to, well, I don't know what the number is. They're saying it's very more contagious than the original strain, right? And Mr. Hill can talk about that, how many people on average are being infected by one person with the Delta variant strain. But that being said, I think that's something the board should get ahead of and have the opportunity to have that information presented to us in detail and have it agendized to take care of our employees. In this case, the board, we went through it. We got quarantined for that exact same issue. And I know many of us didn't like having to stay home for those 10 or 12 days and go through the process. We're on salary. We didn't lose money. But I want to make sure that our employees don't have any more added strain or anxiety that this pandemic has already brought, especially when we've been through it enough times to know what they need and where we lack at on the county. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I think we also have maybe a response from Ms. Ring from HR.
Well, while she comes forward, Mr. Chair, I just want to clarify, I don't have any information about whether that's a Delta variant or not. And we don't have any testing that has indicated that I'm aware of.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. Hitting Ring. I'm just addressing Supervisors Valley question regarding anybody with no leave banks available or anything like that. We still have the supplemental paid sick leave available. Again, like what Mr. Spikes has indicated, if some of the employees may have taken that or not. At any point, if they are out of time, they're out of leave, HR will interact with them, and then at that point, we'll assess to see what's available. and then discuss with the department if we're able to accommodate them to telework, or if we'll go through the process is what we'll do. So the supplemental paid sick leave is available through September 30th. We don't have any indication that that's going to continue at this point, but it would definitely be on the radar, and we definitely talk to the employee.
Thank you, Henny. Is that something that to get ahead of? Is there anything on that topic that you would need from the board to make a decision on so we're not guessing in the future?
I don't think so. Not at this point. Right now, we would be doing it case by case basis. And so there'd be, information that we'd have to look at and see what direction we go to. But we definitely would be talking to the employee to see what was available.
Okay. And also the monies we have invested with KCAO, I believe they would be eligible for that. You got grocery money, you got utilities money, all that money that we put there, that $2 million there. I would want to make sure that our employees are very much aware of that and have the opportunity to go after those resources as well. Can you please make sure that they're aware of that, get reminded of that program?
We will make sure we have every bit of information available so we can pass it on to them.
Thank you, Henny.
You're welcome.
All right. Further questions, comments from the board? Okay, seeing none, we will now move to item 6, which is a study session from the health department. Who's handling that today? Michelle Bieber.
Hello, and good morning again, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Thank you for giving us a little bit more time today. We heard in the proclamation a lot of whereases and a lot of points about breastfeeding. And what we'd like to do now is just in plain language, give a little nutshell picture of why it's important, how we're doing in Kings County, what we're doing and how we're doing, and what kinds of things we can think about doing in the future. So the way we usually describe breastfeeding, and I'm going to start my slides here. We're changing the terminology just a little bit. We're using not just breastfeeding, but we're using breastfeeding and chest feeding, because that tends to normalize the terminology a little bit. It's more appealing to some people, so we may use these terms interchangeably, breastfeeding or chest feeding, and they both apply to the feeding of human milk to babies. And we'll talk about, as I said, where we are and where we need to go. So how we generally describe this is that breastfeeding is what is physiologically expected by the body of the mother of the baby. Breastfed babies are generally healthier than those fed artificial milk, and it provides short and long-term health benefits that reduce health care costs. It provides the infant with all the nutrients they need. The breast milk, the composition of the breast milk changes over time. It can change during a feeding of a baby. The amount of fat and protein in it changes, and it's specifically designed to meet the baby's needs, and it cannot be replicated. Breast milk cannot be duplicated exactly. You can make something that has as many calories and maybe some of the nutrients, but one thing that they have not been able to replicate, and possibly never will, is the immune substances, the immunity-giving substances in breast milk that the baby gets. And that's been especially important and an issue that we paid more attention to with the COVID pandemic. Mothers who have had COVID, breastfeeding women who've had COVID or who are vaccinated are imparting immunity to their babies. And this is important because we know that babies and young children cannot yet be vaccinated. So this should provide some protection to infants being born during this time. It also protects against many other things, childhood illnesses like ear infections, gastroenteritis. Feeding artificial milk increases the rates of ear infections for children. gastroenteritis, which is inflammation of the stomach and intestines that causes diarrhea and vomiting, pneumonia, sudden infant death syndrome, and elevated risk of childhood obesity and type 1 and 2 diabetes. And breastfeeding protects the child potentially against getting these conditions. And we know that's important because certainly we have awareness of our diabetes and obesity rates here in the county. And breastfeeding is a way to potentially lower them. Not only that, I heard something recently that was even more profound. So I'd like to share with you a quote from James P. Grant, the former executive director of UNICEF. He said, "Exclusive breastfeeding goes a long way toward canceling out the health difference between being born into poverty and being born into affluence. It is almost as if breastfeeding takes the infant out of poverty for those first few months in order to give the child a fairer start in life and compensate for the injustice of the world into which it was born." That really hit me when I heard this. I knew it was important, and when I heard this, it just stopped me in my tracks. When I was sharing with this, it was at one of our health department management meetings, and Dr. Teskey shared with us that when he was working in a developing country in Africa, that the infants, it was an impoverished country with severe malnutrition. And the infants who were all were breastfed until they were 18 or 24 months were healthy. They were healthy until they were weaned. And once they were weaned off breast milk and were competing with the rest of the population for the food supply, they were more susceptible to malnutrition that was prevalent in their environment. Even if the mother is malnourished, the human body protects the breast milk production so that it is still exactly what the infant needs. It is not healthier to feed the infant artificial milk, even if the mother is severely malnourished. So again, it can help bring the infant out of poverty, level the playing field from being poor to being born into a family with more money. And it can help prevent serious short-term health conditions and longer-term health conditions. So how we're doing. Breastfeeding data is kind of all over the place. It's hard to get good local data. What I'm going to do first is in the proclamation, I shared some information. There was a point about the Healthy People 2020 goals. And so those are goals that are set every 20 years, 10 years for the country. The 2020 goal for exclusive breastfeeding at 6 months was 25.5. So that's a low goal to begin with. It's 1/4 of all infants to be breastfeeding at 6 months, 25.5. Now, California did meet and slightly exceed that goal, but that's for all people. It doesn't break it down for lower income people or ethnic groups. So we squeaked by on the 2020 goal, and we met that for California. For 2030, they upped the ante. So the goal for 2030 is 42.4. An 18 percentage point increase. And that is a long way to go because we're still around the 26.3 mark. And with 9 years left to go, that will take a lot of work and attention. We haven't seen increases that sharp in that short of time in the past. And this is even in spite of California having strong policies for breastfeeding support. There are federal laws to support, particularly lactation accommodation in the workplace. And California also has strong laws to support lactation accommodation in the workplace. Next, I do have some local data on the hospital breastfeeding rates for Kings County. So as I said, good local data is a little bit hard to come by. And what we do have is hospital breastfeeding rates. So starting down here in 2018, this was, the blue line is the percentage for exclusive breastfeeding and the orange line is the rate for any breastfeeding. What we're really focusing on here is the blue line, the exclusive breastfeeding rate. So in 2018, we were at 52%. Now we're at 58%. In 2018, when we were at 52%, we were ranked 46th out of 49 in the state for our breastfeeding rate. So that is low. And it's not the hospital's fault. It's certainly not the hospital's fault. What we hope to show you is that there are a lot of factors that go into whether or not a woman is able to, a person is able to successfully breastfeed. But we were ranked at 46 out of 49 counties. Now, since then, we've seen some increases. And what happened was in 2020, the hospital achieved a huge accomplishment, which is they became baby friendly. And so this is something that the hospital does that makes it easier for women to breastfeed in the hospital. They don't offer artificial baby milk. The baby is left with the mother, so they're able to bond and get the exclusive breastfeeding started right away. So we should start to see increases with this. But there are also a lot of other factors in our community and in other sectors of healthcare that impact whether or not a woman breastfeeds. The other thing that is important about the hospital breastfeeding rates is these are as good as it gets. Breastfeeding rates don't get better after women leave the hospital. They generally start to decline. We see at 3 months after the birth, the 3-month-old infant, that out of 70% of infants who were being breastfed when they left the hospital, only 50% are breastfed at 3 months. And our rates are lower than that to start with. So we start off with low rates. They unfortunately continue to get worse after leaving the hospital. And what we're looking to achieve is exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months. And then around that time, the infant would start eating some baby food, and we'd start introducing foods, but then they would continue to breastfeed along with the complementary foods after that. Rates are much lower for women living 2%, families living 2% or more below the poverty level. And they're also much lower for Latinx families, Asian Pacific Islanders, and Black families. So what this does is it creates health disparities. It puts these children at more of a disadvantage. They may be sick more often. Their parents have to miss time from work to take care of them, and they're at higher risk. The non-breastfed infants are at higher risk for obesity and type 1 and 2 diabetes later in life. And so we'll be looking at these hospital breastfeeding rates over time. These were shared with me by Amy Nace at the hospital, and we do work closely together to try and make sure that we do what we can to support our WIC participants and their patients in their breastfeeding journey. What I'd like to do now is pass the floor to Claudia Caceres, who is our breastfeeding coordinator for the WIC program, and she's going to share a little bit with you about what we're doing now at the Health Department in WIC and the Kings County Breastfeeding Coalition.
Hi, good morning. Thank you. Thank you, Michelle. We can share the responsibility for protecting breastfeeding and improving our rates. It does take a multi-sectoral approach. And I just want to share with you, starting off with WIC, how we're supporting our Kings County moms here. We try to partner up with all of the healthcare providers because we want moms, as soon as they know that they are pregnant, to enroll in our program if they qualify. This gives us plenty of time. Oh, hold on just 1 second. I'm sorry. I apologize. Just 1 second. We're going to go ahead and share.
I don't see it.
We're going to try to get our slideshow up just a second.
It down here.
But they can't see.
Okay, then we'll have to, yeah. We'll have to let it go. I don't think we'll be able to get them up.
And we apologize. We did have a slideshow, with some wonderful pictures of, even our WIC moms here. We're just having a little technical difficulties, but we don't want that to, slow us down and giving our message. Again, we want our moms, as soon as they find out they're pregnant, to reach out to WIC. We want to offer as much as breastfeeding information, including not only just breastfeeding, but also baby behavior, what to expect, what is normal baby behavior to support these moms through their breastfeeding journey. So all of that is done prenatally. We try to spend as much as time also addressing the problem, the concerns that these moms have. So whether it's their first baby, their third or fourth baby, we want to make sure we address those concerns, and we want them to feel supported, that they're making a well-informed decision on how to feed their infant. A lot of our work also takes place once the baby is born. They mentioned the hospital. So these moms could be in the hospital for a day or two. And once they're released, they need that support. And that's where WIC comes in. I've helped countless moms. They come in for common challenges, which could be they're maybe having some pain, some discomfort with latching their baby. So they come and see us one-on-one. We're able to address those needs. We also have here an electric breast pump program, a loan program. It's free. These pumps are hospital grade, great quality pumps. And this helps support those moms that need to go back to work, or maybe they need to go back to school. These pumps also help those moms that are separated from their babies, whether the baby's in the NICU or mom's having any health issues. I take a lot of joy in sharing actually the joy with the moms when they meet the breastfeeding goals. Earlier, we heard about valley fever. I worked with a mom that came to us, concerned because she was a full breastfeeding mom. Her baby didn't drink any formula at all. She was diagnosed with valley fever. Her doctor let her know that she was going to start some medication and that she would have to stop breastfeeding. This was very devastating to the mom to know that this was like the only form of food. This baby wasn't old enough to have, solids. This mom was devastated. She came to us because she wanted to start pumping to make sure she started storing up. So when she really had to start taking this medication, she had milk for her baby. She was worried about what formula would do to her baby, if the baby would even take it at this point. She was concerned about her milk production. So she came to support with us. Of course, we have the pump for her, but we were also able to link her up with the experts. There are experts out there that do research on breast milk and medications. She only spoke Spanish, so we make sure, this program, this nonprofit, these experts were able to talk to her in her own language. She was able to talk to her doctor, and it turned out she didn't have to stop breastfeeding. She was able to, talk to her doctor, and that she didn't have to stop. She was very grateful for us because that was huge. So if it wasn't for WIC, she said she didn't know what she would do. So she was very grateful. That's just one of, the many happy stories and impacts that we have with our local Queens County families here. I'd also like to share, Michelle mentioned that I am the vice chair for the Kings County Breastfeeding Coalition. Our coalition has been active for the last over 20 years. We provide free education to the community, and a lot of those community members also are healthcare providers. More recently, we did a 4-part series for the last 4 months. We have had great participation in these free educational. They're 1 hour during their lunchtime. They're via Zoom, and we're addressing a lot of those barriers that healthcare providers or whether they're nonprofits that work with these families that would need breastfeeding support. Those have been well attended. In the past, we would hold these in person, and maybe our attendance rate was like 20. Right now, we're well over 100. And so we're very excited. We know that that's making an impact. If you had a chance to ever visit the hospital here in Hanford, the labor and delivery, you will notice that they have these beautiful portraits. That was also something that was donated from the Kings County Breastfeeding Coalition, that we funded that project. So there's these beautiful portraits of moms breastfeeding in all throughout the labor and delivery. We also work hand in hand with other breastfeeding coalitions here in the Central Valley. And of course, right now we're currently working on putting on more educational opportunities. So as businesses, what can we, let's just speed it up. Okay. What can we want you to promote and practice the lactation accommodation, and then also promote Kings County businesses to do so. As a community, we just want to normalize breastfeeding. I'm going to go ahead and pass over now to Dylan. And Dylan is our local liaison, breastfeeding liaison for Kings and Tulare County. So this is Dylan. I'm going to just finish up.
Okay, thank you, Claudia, and thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Board of Supervisors. We appreciate your time today. If you have any questions, we are available for questions. We have information we can share with you about lactation accommodation and how to implement that in the workplace, as well as I noticed in our in your legislative platform that you have committed to supporting healthcare funding and programs aimed at primary prevention, of which breastfeeding certainly is a great way to implement primary prevention. We're not asking for money right now, but we wanted to bring this issue to your attention. So thank you. That concludes our presentation, and we're available for any questions.
Well, thank you. Thanks so much for the presentation today. And I guess as one member and a new grandfather, I know I don't look it. My just hair is colored. It's not my real hair color, but I've got to live through, and my daughter stayed with us for about 8 weeks after she had the baby, and just witnessing what simple things like stress, nutrition, and the importance of supplements and things like that cause the either the fridge to be low on the milk or overrunneth. Yeah, I got in trouble a few times because couples packs of breast milk fell out, and so she's a little bit sensitive about it too.
Good point. Yes. Yes. Thank you for sharing that. It can be, it can be emotional. I think that's the other thing is we think it might be easy. We think it, everybody can do it and it's a snap, but it really is, as you experience, there's a lot involved with it. So. Yeah.
Notwithstanding the attachments that go along with that.
Absolutely.
Pretty good technology these days as compared to when I was a young man. But with that, further questions, comments from the board? Seeing none, thank you again for the presentation, and we will now move to the next study session, which is from administration on the American Rescue Plan Act funding.
Good morning, board members, county council, CAO, clerk of the board. Curio Martinez, Assistant County Administrative Officer. And today I will be presenting a study session on the American Rescue Plan Act. This is the second study session that we are bringing to your board today. On March 11, 2021, the American Rescue Plan, also known as ARPA, was signed into law by the president. This bill included $65.1 billion in direct flexible aid to every county in America. The funds are intended to provide support to state and local governments in responding to the impact of COVID-19 and their efforts to contain COVID-19 on their communities, residents, and businesses. These funds build on and expand on support provided to the governments over the last year, additional funding from the CARES Act. Kings County is scheduled to receive approximately $29 million. We have already received $14 million. As mentioned last time, we convened an ARPA committee with the responsibilities to review the rules and develop recommendations for a study session plan, with the administration leading the effort. These departments include the Human Services Agency, Economic Development, Finance Department, Information Technology, Behavioral Health, Sheriff's Office, Public Works, Community Development Agency, and Human Resources. Administration is working on final budget that will be presented at the budget hearings on August 17th, and these recommendations are recommended as final budget changes. The U.S. Department of Treasury published guidance that governs the implementation of the ARPA funds. Local relief funds are described in 4 primary categories, which are as followed: respond to public health emergency and address its negative economic effects, provide premium pay for essential workers, replace lost public sector revenue, and invest in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. Within these categories, there are additional clarifications on how the funds can be used. In category 1, respond to the public health emergency and address its negative economic effects. This is the largest category and has the most flexibility. In order to assess what eligible uses, one should consider whether and how the funds would respond to COVID-19. The committee has identified this category as one of the most important need at this point in time. I will go over these items in the next slide. In this category, we are recommending a total of 7 items totaling $5,082,150. We have $2,035,126 going to public health. This would be for programs and service necessaries to continue efforts in addressing, mitigating, and responding to COVID-19, including efforts in continued testing and increased vaccination capacity. For businesses, we have set aside $500,000, approximately $15,000 for staff time, and $485,000 directly to small businesses. The funds would be used for business support and retention specific to those businesses that were required to shut down to the executive orders. Businesses who were shut down have faced a double impact, first from reduced lost revenues, and then difficulty finding labor post-shutdown. The specified funds would help address some of those issues. Under the $6 million program we did through the CARES funding, our total award in the unincorporated areas was about $570,000, but it was difficult to get to that level. So that's why we were recommending the $500,000 now. The third item we have are the board chambers upgrade, $150,000. Our board chambers are not physically prepared for any camera equipment or sound audio for the purpose of allowing the remote access unless the equipment is actually directly tied with extension cords, which causes a big hazard for members of the public entering. If you're standing in our chambers this morning, you can see that we have some hazard tapes on the chairs. So we would like to remove that barrier and mount cameras on top of the ceiling. And the issue is we have some asbestos in the ceiling. So this amount would cover the removal of that, the patchwork, and also the technology equipment. Further, we have $500,000 going to community service districts. Those are Armona Community Service District, Home Garden, Kettleman City, and Stratford. This is for utility back bills for those who have not been able to make payments. We have been in conversations with Cole Carr, who is the liaison with the Community Service District Association, and he put a survey out to all those service districts, and we are confident this can cover the arrears with this amount. Next, we have the county emergency preparedness, which is $438,000. This is for personal protective equipment, including gloves, cleaning materials, face coverings for our jail, our juvenile hall. Our public works also distributes supplies to all county departments. So this amount is for county PPE items. Next, we have the information technology upgrades in the amount of $1,064,024. This is to add upgrades to existing network due to the added network pressures. Last week, our servers did go down. This was a problem with our switches. We couldn't see half of the blade servers. So one of the items listed in particular would give us more power to make it through a situation like last week's. Our servers were down for approximately 3 hours, which does impact county operations. So included in this amount includes the security items, servers, switches, and server backups. And last, we have, for this category, we have generators in the amount of $395,000, one for information technology and one for dispatch. When these two generators were installed in 1974, they were designed to supply power to essential services on an individual basis. The second generator was redundant emergency power. The first generator went out of commission. Over time, Central Services Building has increased its power load due to added computers, servers, and equipment. Due to the increased demand for powers, it is not possible to supply emergency power on one generator as it was originally designed. 2 weeks ago, we did have the power go down. It was a clear indication that these generators are at capacity. These funds are intended to provide support in responding to the COVID-19 impacts and their efforts on the COVID-19 on the communities, residents, and businesses. These recommendations not only help residents of Kings County, but allow the county to maintain service levels. The next category identified by the ARPA committee and is a recommendation is the revenue loss public sector. In public sector, budget shortfalls are a problem in current environment. A state and local governments work to mitigate and contain COVID-19 pandemic as it is ever so evolving. This category was identified as one of the top priorities. Our Department of Finance looked at a broader range of larger revenues to the county and was able to identify $4,281,131. We did not anticipate future revenue loss. This is the current revenue loss as it stands. Although these are one-time revenues, this will help the county set up long-time financial security by leveling revenue loss and maintaining service levels. When we presented to your board on June 22nd, there was a discussion of revenue loss to the parks as part of that discussion. So we worked with Public Works and identified lost revenue in the collection fees of $46,286. This amount is included in today's presentation and will also be recommended as a final proposed budget change. This slide on your screen identifies all the categories summed in one slide. As you can see, we are requesting $9,409,567 to be included as final budget changes. Only $5,128,436 will be included as final budget changes, as the revenue loss of $4,281,131 will be set aside in a reserve trust to not fall into our fund balance. The county has received already approximately $14 million. A new budget unit was created. As of today, they sit in a fund in order to not to fall into our general fund balance. Administration is recommending phasing the allocated funds as items are identified through our county internal ARPA committee. Every day is an evolving situation. Our committee wants to be cautious in allocating the funds all at once. We still have all funds must be obligated by December of 2024 and all funds must be spent by December of 2026. So we do have some time. Staff anticipates returning in future board meetings to discuss how to allocate the remaining approximately $20 million of ARPA funds. At this time, if you have any questions, I am available.
Very good. Thank you for the presentation. Questions, comments from the board?
Mr. Chairman?
Pull the, yeah, we're going to pull the presentation down. I couldn't see it. So yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't see if anyone else was trying to speak. I can't see you guys either. Yeah, Mr. Chairman, so with some of the COVID relief action taking place at the state level, one of them being broadband money's coming out of the state to improve broadband statewide. Are we making sure we're not duplicating any efforts, meaning putting money here, budgeting money here that we don't have to if in fact we're going to get some of that relief from the state, or has there been any indication we would be getting any monies that could help offset the IT proposal here. And I'll pause to get an answer to that. And then I have another question, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Valley. This is Carrie again. So we do have broadband as one of the identified projects. However, we are waiting for the state budget to kind of be rolled out and see how those funding rules are going to be applicable. We do anticipate that some funds will go to broadband. I have our Information Technology Director, John Devlin, who I believe has a comment as well. Thank you.
Good morning, Supervisor Valley, through the chair. Yes, what I've just done is formed a broadband coalition. And that broadband coalition is comprised of several county department folks, Public Works, Community Development, JTO, myself. We also reached out to the Community College District, West Hills, and Dr. Clark is on board, also the local Office of Education. And I just heard back from Natalie Rencher from the libraries during the meeting earlier, because that's the other area. We're certainly open to have others join this coalition, but there's monies coming from the state. There's also now monies coming from the feds, which we have no idea on how much that's going to be yet. So we thought what we should do is get together, lay out all of our needs and desires to reach some of the areas that aren't being met here in Kings County. And that way we have a plan for when these monies come in, as opposed to the state or the feds just telling us what we need. We'll be laying out what our needs are in a cohesive manner.
Okay, thank you both for that response. If those funds come in, will you be redirecting this money back into the pot for future consideration for the board?
Supervisor Valley, this is Kyria Martinez again. The proposal included today does not include anything with broadband related.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I heard broadband mentioned several times during the presentation, so maybe I didn't absorb that information correctly. I guess the overall question then, for any of these monies here that you have proposed today, if in fact we receive funding due to COVID relief action taking place at the federal level or the state level, will these monies, once received at the county, will any of these monies be put back into the pot for future consideration?
Yes, Supervisor Valley, the items that we identified for information technology, they were all for county related purchases that are in need right now. So we do not anticipate returning those funds if the state gives us additional funding.
Okay, again, I'm asking for all of everything that you're listing here.
Yes, once the state and federal monies come down, we will definitely take a look and see if we need to allocate some fundings in other areas.
Okay, thank you. And the emergency response for the to help the CSDs throughout the county, that 500,000. I know that at least for my district, I forwarded to you the debt, the up-to-date debt. But when you look at all these other communities, does that 500,000 help the CSDs to be 100% whole?
Yes, that amount, the 500,000, is actually above and beyond what's in the arrears currently. We wanted to estimate a little bit higher, just anticipating that that number continues to grow.
Okay, thank you. And then lastly, the 500,000 for small businesses. I know now that's just looking at in the county jurisdiction, and I get what you said based on what we put out in the past, but I would definitely like to make sure that at least from the perspective of Lance Lippincott, that one, that's enough money, especially based on the scenario that those businesses, the first wave took a lot out of them, and they're probably weaker going into any other wave that would impact them, especially if there were any more forced closures, which I believe none of us want that to happen. But if that's the case, where there's a need for more money, how quickly could you bring before the board to allocate more than the 500,000? Well, there's monies left right in this first allotment where you could come back to the board swiftly.
Supervisor Valley, this is Carrie Martinez again. Yes, we still have an additional 20 million that we have not allocated. We can bring that at any time to your board for consideration.
Okay. Lastly, Kara, we spoke on the phone the other day. As it relates to my comments the last time this came back around, and you know, my strong concern of the lack of you know, just pointing out some of the monies here being directed back to these hardest hit populations and these hardest hit communities. And I get that, you know, there's an argument to be said that by helping the CSDs, you know, we're helping high populations of Latinos who are impacted throughout the county. I appreciate that. But I also ask that those efforts were laid out clearly the next time we came back around here. And I didn't hear that. I didn't even hear the word Latino put out there. Is there anything that you could add to that? And I'm asking not only for my concern, but for the Latino leaders who are meeting with me and communicating with me to make sure that those concerns are being acted upon.
Yes, Supervisor Valley, this is Carrie Martinez again. So the funds going to the service districts, in addition, we also have that 2 million going to public health, which those funds that are going to public health will directly impact all the communities and all the residents in Kings County, which do include the Latino population. I have Ed Hill, who I think
Perfect. Thank you.
comment. Give me 1 second.
Thank you.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Ed Hill, Supervisor Valley to the chair. That 2 million that has been allocated, or we're asking for allocation in the public health budget, those monies are being used or will be used to continue to staff and deploy resources to all of the clinics, specifically in Avenel, Corcoran, Kettleman City, those areas that have been impacted through this process, and the Hispanic population. You know, the stats show that the Hispanic population has received the majority of the single dose vaccine, but there's still a lot of work to do there when you stratify that by population. They're only vaccinated at 31%. So we do have a lot of work to do there. Those funds will be used to continue those efforts in those areas. Before COVID, before the CARES Act funds, and before these funds, our clinics in those areas were dark. They were closed with the exception of WIC. And it's because of these funds that we've been able to increase services and provide those services, not only case investigation, contact tracing, vaccine, outreach to those communities, door to door. You know, we opened those clinics on weekends and on Sundays, you know, several months ago to address those specific issues. And those funds will be used to continue that process. In addition to that, you know, there's the possible emergence of antibody therapy that we would like to consider rolling out. Those areas would be prime for those. Again, that's something that's maybe in the future, but those funds would be used to support that. And then finally, as with the CARES Act, public health, we do anticipate different type of funding coming down the stream from the state and the feds. And as those funds come down, we will communicate with the CAO's office and release these funds if they're no longer needed.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. I appreciate that general information. If you don't mind, I'll follow up with you offline on to get some more details on some of those programs, and I'll help share that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Hey, thank you.
That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, Ms. Chair, Larry Spikes again. This actually was just to make sure your board was not caught unawares with any adjustments that were related to these specific funds that we're going to be covering during budget hearings. So you don't have to take any action on it. We just want to make sure you're aware of what we're doing. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. And thanks to the committee for your hard work in you know, wading through this process. And you know, matter of fact, I was noticing today that National Association of Counties is having a like their fifth in a series of presentations on how you can use Recover Act funds, and specifically today at I think 2 p.m. Eastern is with respect to broadband uses with that funding. So, and I think also with respect to you know, the supervisor's comments, you know, the announcements, you a plethora of state funding funnels for, not only documented but undocumented residents in our community and that have been made available by the state. So there are clearly a lot of funding sources that are available at this point, and hopefully we'll be able to take advantage of many of those. Right. Let's see. So that completes our study sessions for the day. At this time, we'll move to item 7, which is board member announcements and reports. Supervisor Valley.
Yeah, no, let me get my notes real quick. Do you mind coming back to me, Mr. Chairman? I wanted to go over some notes that I had for this.
Supervisor Neves.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. King's Waste and Recycling meeting held last week. $7.7 million spending plan was approved, and moving forward, there will include a temporary tip fee decrease to $58 a ton beginning August 1st. Unfortunately, several layoffs to right size that operation, and has a very lean budget for the coming year. At the CART meeting, we conducted a public hearing in order to adopt the small business plan goals for the triennial audit. Also approved the transit center design, and a lot of discussion about residential, both permanent or temporary housing. Also received an update on the bus fleet. We have a new bus fleet, and unfortunately, for a variety of reasons, some parts are held up in transition, and some of them are not able to stay running. So we continue to use the old fleet in order to keep the system running. We also received an update on the electric bus project. And then we did approve the safety plan for the organization that will be in place for the next 2 or 3 years. 3 years, I think they are. And approved the purchase of a Toyota RAV4 to be able to help the organization get around town. And received a progress report on the seasonal pass program. We've kind of adopted that seasonal pass program, and it has gone from a utilization of about 50 to about 250. So that program is working out very, very well. At the KCAG meeting, we approved the Hanford fixed route schedule study. As things change within the community and the needs continue to evolve, that study will help us try to plan out a better transportation plan for the future. Local transportation funds, that budget grew by $1.7 million for a total of $5.8 million budget in that organization. And we continue to spend that very efficiently. We also heard that the metropolitan threshold, as we talked about a couple of months ago, will remain at $50,000. That keeps the organization at a metropolitan status. There was a proposal to increase that population to 100,000, which would take us out of the utilization of those funds. So we're glad we stayed there. Also attended a webinar on the nonprofit insurance coverage. Many nonprofit organizations that rely on volunteer members continue to face increasing premium costs, and even a lot of losing insurance coverage. A lot of insurance companies are just leaving California. And so it makes it very, very difficult to maintain that insurance coverage. And just not very many companies are willing to accept the risk or pay out any claims. And it's becoming very, very difficult. And one of the figures is that the nonprofits have about 460,000 full-time equivalent positions within the state of California. So. Also had the opportunity to attend the City of Hanford Celebration Breakfast and Car Show on Saturday. I think Supervisor Raboon was there with the cars, and it was a very nice morning. The American Legion breakfast is also in Lemoore. That was on Friday morning, so I didn't have 2 morning. I have had days where I have 2 breakfasts, but that wasn't one of them.
I also had the opportunity to do some announcing at Keller Auto Raceway and Plaza Park in Visalia, as well as the Lemoore Raceway on Saturday. And so back-to-back racing and a lot of fun doing that. And then just a reminder, schools will be opening in the next week after a year and a half shutdown. And so for students and staff, you're going to see a little bit different traffic patterns, both vehicular and walking. Some of that traffic has already increased with sports teams taking the field for practices. Some of the bands are already practicing for their season. And for a lot of those students and for some of the new staff, this is a new world because for the last year and a half, they've been offline. So, or online and not on campus. So be aware around the schools, and just because school will start in another week or two, there's already traffic there, and you're already going to see some different changes in those environments. So with that, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good. Supervisor Fagundes.
Good. So Supervisor Dev said, it stated in the transportation display at the Hanford Civic Auditorium on Saturday. This was put on by the Kings County Carnegie Museum now. And Jack Swartz, I want to thank him for his efforts to put that together. And also Tim Pashears, he was also part of that, putting it all together. On site, they had the Kings County Historical Society was there. And I know, Catherine, this may be interesting to you, but they had a machine to take those big supervisor books that we have and document and put it on digital format. So that might be something we might want to look at for purchase ourselves and teach our guys to do it, to preserve that history. Yeah, it was a good weekend by all. I know Tim Shears had the First Park Museum, and Dave Morrison out there as well, showing all the history stuff with that. So good event by all. But I think that Carnegie is open now. There is some issue we may need to look at. The previous owner had taken a lot of the merchandise and locked it up in a room, and we have no access to it for families that have donated in the past, not have their stuff on display. So we might want to do a letter to them to tell them to give, release that to the Carnegie because it goes along to the community, not the personal. So thank you. All I have.
Thank you. Supervisor Brown.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to use my time for a couple of questions for clarification. Mr. Chairman, as Mr. Spikes reported out, the 27 Kings County employees currently being impacted during this current surge, if that's what we're going to label it. But he did ask. It sounded like he was seeking something from the board for action as it relates to masking guidelines, differentiation, the treatment, for lack of a better word, on how we handled vaccinated employees versus unvaccinated employees, all those questions that he asked about. So for clarification, I want to ask if he got what he needed out of that, or was he going to put anything on the agenda based on his concerns?
Well, yeah, just for clarification, I mean, our discussion time has kind of ended, but the question with respect to future agenda items and things like that, you want to respond?
Sure, Mr. Chair. This Larry Spikes, interim CAO. I put the information out there because your board has the ability to take action in whatever way it sees fit, as was done previously under this particular agenda item, which will be on the agenda again for next Tuesday. I wanted to make sure the board is fully aware of how we're being impacted at this point, and if there is a desire by the board to take further action, it's within your authority to do that under the agenda item as listed as was previously done. So it'll be the same item be on agenda next Tuesday, and the board can take action if they see fit.
Thank you, Mr. Spikes, and answers my question. And this is a time where board can also ask questions for clarification under board member announcements. Lastly, Mr. Chairman, I would also ask, I know this isn't popular to say right now, and I'm not looking for consensus of the board, but I'm going to put on record just the concern there and put it in the hands of Mr. Spikes and our admin, and especially Mr. Hill, who I believe has been more and more during the last few months coming out of the highest COVID impacts to the county. He's been leading on the county's reaction or being proactive. And I think that, this is an opportunity where as one sitting board member, I'm looking to him to do that right now, whether it's, his opinion as it relates to Mr. Spike's concerns that will be on the agenda next week. And also his opinion, if we are in a surge and 27 employees is enough of a count, and looking at the model for infection rates coming off those 27 employees, if it's time, in his opinion, for the board to have a discussion, to be prepared to put our employees back on teleworking before we come to a point where we have a very high infection rate, and we put ourselves in the same situation that we put other businesses around the county at fault for waiting too long and for ignoring those infections in their own workplaces. So again, we're always held to a higher standard as elected officials, but also here at the county, just overall. And so again, that I'm just putting that out there as my opinion for Mr. Hill to be proactive about that and to work with our county CAO if those are actions they feel that the board needs to pull the trigger on or take their opinion and let them lead on it as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's my report.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And just very quickly, had a few concerns with road conditions, potholes, rough roads. Imagine that, county. I just want to thank Dominic. I know there's one new project, a housing project on Houston between 11th and 12th that I received a number of concerns about. And I happened to travel through there yesterday, and it's good. Thank you. All right, that's the comments that I have today. And with that, we'll move to upcoming events and board correspondence.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Larry Spikes, interim CAO. Under board correspondence, received a couple of items to bring to your attention. Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board meeting notice and agenda for Friday, August 13th, this coming Friday, a week from Friday. Then we received the Lemoore Cemetery District budget for 21-22. And the last thing under correspondence I want to bring to your attention is that I received a letter from Jim Erb, the finance director for Kings County, indicating, and I quote here, "I am reluctantly submitting my letter of resignation. My final day of employment at Kings County will be September 17th, 2021. I am retiring for no other reason than I'm getting old." And it goes on from there. It goes on from there, but I know the feeling, Jim. So anyway, just wanted to bring that to your board's attention, and your board gave us direction last week because we verbally were aware of this, but I wanted to put that in the record for correspondence. With respect to upcoming meetings, events, et cetera, budget hearing again is scheduled for August 17th and 18th, and the impact fee public hearing, which we do in conjunction with that, will be on August 17th. Blood drive, August 18th, 9 to 2 p.m. Blood mobile in the parking lot near the Human Service Agency, Building 12 and Lacey Boulevard in the old jury parking lot. That'll be taking place. Then also I was notified that tomorrow at 5 o'clock at the Hanford Civic Auditorium, Hanford will be conducting a public meeting regarding island annexations within their boundaries. And I think that specifically would relate to at least two districts, districts, I think that would be districts 3 and districts 5 primarily. So your board members, I just want to make sure you're aware of that. Also, Hanford 12 and under All-Stars are headed to the World Series, scheduled for August 7th to 15th in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. I just indicated I would let people know that was occurring too. Then also the sheriff wanted me to pass along the Sheriff Posse Crab Feed at Burris Park is scheduled for September 11th, 2021. $150 a ticket? Okay, thank you. Okay.
Is that included?
Trying to make up for last year.
Is that air conditioning included?
It's going to be cool that day.
Yeah.
Then upcoming agenda items. August 10th, we have from administration, the medical care inmate program, IGT certification of voluntary contributions, agreement with Kings County Commission on Aging fiscal year 21-22 general fund contribution. Again, from administration, WellPath jail medical contract amendment. And if my memory serves me correctly, I think the Laguna Irrigation District board member issue, I think we can bring that back, I believe, next Tuesday. Remember that. It'll be next Tuesday or the week after, as I recall.
Okay.
So behavioral health is bringing second amendment to agreement with Spirinet. We will have the COVID-19 update again next week, of course. Probation, a JAG grant application, Kings Juvenile Center population self-cap adjustment. That'll be on next week. And then in 2 weeks, administration, public hearing, health realignment fund transfer. Again, that's typically done in conjunction with budget hearings. We'll announce the photo contest winner, which I believe is then used for the budget book. And the behavioral health agreement with Aegis Treatment Centers for outpatient narcotic treatment program services, agreement with Judge Rottenberg, Educational Center for Residential Treatment Program Services, agreement with Plumlee's Board and Care for Adult Residential Care Services, and from Fire, there'll be a swearing-in ceremony for Penny Saltre, honorary firefighter for the Kings County Fire Department, and Human Services Agency agreement with KCAO for Cal Learn Program Services. And that's what I have on upcoming matters.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Well, that brings us to item 8, which is closed session. We do have 2 items today. First is significant exposure to litigation, 1 case, Government Code Section 54956.9 D2. And secondly, personnel matter, Government Code Section 54957, public employee appointment. And that is for the county administrative officer.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. One item I forgot that the sheriff wanted me to notify you is an upcoming item on pathological contract services due to the death of the former provider. So sorry about that, Dave. Mr. Sheriff, sorry.
Okay, let's see. So the second matter is a personnel matter, Government Code Section 54957 with the county administrative officer. And with that, any further action come before the board this time? Seeing none, we will be in recess until Tuesday, August 10th, 2021 at 9 a.m. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.